Hi, I'm Mitch Gallagher. This is GearFest 2018, and we're in the studio with a very special guest. Greg Phillinganes is here. Great to see you.
Oh, hi. I didn't get the memo. I thought that I was supposed to be somewhere else, and I know you were expecting Greg, but he couldn't make it, so
we've got you.
They sent me. Yeah.
We appreciate you filling in.
Yeah.
So, man, I got to tell you, I think you have more slashes in your job description than just about anybody we've had in here for an interview.
Yeah, from janitor to plumbing.
Kind of covered the whole thing there.
Yeah.
And then there's also singer, arranger, songwriter, composer, music director, sideman, keyboard player, on and on and on and on.
Yeah.
Pretty incredible. Yeah. So how do you get from a 2-year-old playing piano to the heights that you've reached in your career?
The grace of God.
Yeah.
Period. I never ever imagined anywhere near the amazing journey. You can't imagine it.
Right.
In some ways you can. I mean, I do remember being so obsessed and enamored by Stevie when I was in high school. I remember telling friends of mine that I would one day play with him, and I don't know where that came from, but that was just so deeply rooted in my gut that it came out that way, and God gave me the dream that was growing in there by an incredible story on its own.
Right.
And so I started with him, with Stevie.
At 18 years old, right?
Just before I turned 19. A month before I turned 19 and a month before he turned 25.
Crazy.
And he was working on songs in the key of life.
Couldn't have been a better timing, right?
Yeah. So, needless to say, that was amazing.
Right. And you had done some work before that. You had recorded with Roy Ayers before that, right?
Well, it was around the same time.
Okay.
Actually, because right when I joined Stevie's band, the part of the story is that the guy who basically facilitated me getting the gig, my beloved friend Ricky Lawson,
right,
did not get the gig with Stevie because he went to audition for him originally. He didn't get the gig with Stevie, but he ended up with Roy Ayers, who was hanging around at the time. And so he started with him, and then Roy called me to do a little work on his Everybody Loves the Sunshine album. And because of the timing of things, that album came out first before Songs in the Key of Life. So that was technically the first album that I recorded on.
Right.
You can hear.
Crazy.
So
crazy.
Yeah.
So clearly you were prepared even at that young age to be able to step into the big league.
I guess in a sense, but I don't know. I don't want to say, well, yes, I was completely prepared. Because,
sure.
No, I mean, I don't think so. But I think, again, when God is setting you up, he'll prepare you. Mm-hmm. And, I was certainly ready to take on the challenge, no question about it. But, it was an incredible learning experience being with Stevie. Of course, it's like, Wonder University.
Right.
And what I learned musically, I still implement to this day.
Sure,
so,
sure. And be a part of that incredible project, touring and things after that.
Yeah, and just understanding the mechanics of different genres of music. What gives them their essence. The characteristics and what makes them sound the way they sound.
Right.
Because we'd be rehearsing or playing around with Stevie for hours in the studio. Because at that time, Wonderlove was his experimental tool,
right.
Really. He'd flesh things out live in a lot of cases for live shows or for records. Mm-hmm. And, we would just go through different styles,
right.
At any given turn.
Sure.
So that was a fascinating experience.
You've said that the key to all the different styles is understanding their groove.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about that. How do you pick up on that groove, and how do you absorb that so you sound authentic?
Picking out the elements or the characteristics of, say, reggae. Mm-hmm. What are the fundamentals that make it sound that way? Okay, so you have a certain bass movement that goes along a heavy drum pattern that's heavily emphasized on 2 and 4. Mm-hmm. So then you got the guitar, you know, and so once you have those fundamental elements, then you're able to place yourself in that mindset. You know?
Right.
Because it's like characters. They're different characters, and you adapt to each character. Or the same with I don't know, bluegrass, or gospel, or rock, or blues or jazz. You know.
Sure.
There are certain, and you know, there may be elements that are more complex in certain genres than others, but just understanding those fundamentals really, you know, it just expands your musicality and your musical vocabulary.
Right.
And you're able to, you know, you're able to take on the authenticity of each genre that way.
Right.
I think.
Right. Yeah, that's great. I have to say, I'm very impressed that we've got drums going on in the background here, and you're able to lay that groove right down at your own tempo.
Just this once.
It's GearFest, so there's going to be music all around.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, it's crazy.
That's awesome. So it interests me looking at your incredible resume of all the artists. It'd be easier to name the artists you haven't played with than the ones you have. But three that stand out to me are of course, Stevie Wonder and Donald Fagen and Herbie Hancock. And the reason they stand out is those are keyboard players. And it's interesting that you as a keyboard player are playing with these keyboard players.
Yeah.
You said that Stevie picked you
Yeah.
because you sounded like him.
Well,
to
that's
extent.
part of the story. Okay, you know about that. The legend has it anyway that when he did finally listen to the tape, that Ricky insisted that I play some songs of his on. It was in a pile of tapes, and he had stepped away from that area. And when he came back, he was just flipping around, and he ended up putting this tape in the machine. And you know, he's listening, you know, and all of a sudden he stops and he says, "Who is this?" So the manager at the time looked at the tape and said my name, and of course butchered it terribly. And so then Steve supposedly said, "Get him." And so they went back to Ricky, who thought that Steve changed his mind. and he said, "No, but you know your friend, can you call him?" So that's what, and then I ended up telling Steve that side of the story some time ago, and he said, "Oh, okay, well, we'll go with that." He didn't quite remember it that way, but he said, "Oh, that sounds about it."
Right.
We'll go with that.
So what is the challenge when you're working with another keyboard player like that? Are you, or what is your role as you see it when you're working with
Well,
someone?
it's not just another keyboard player, it's any artist in general, is to try, you know, the goal is to try to fit inside their particular groove, you know, and adapt to their unique characteristics musically. And that sounds, you know, really cute on paper, or it looks, you know, fairly easy on paper, but it's not, because you're talking about, you know, adapting to their sense of musicality. And it's a pretty amazing thing to be able to do that, and it's something that I've kind of taken for granted for all these years. But when I hear it described back to me by other musicians as far as how I do what I do, then it sounds fairly impressive. but yeah, I mean, Stevie plays and sounds a certain way. Donald, you know, I obviously studying Steely Dan and listening to, you know, the elements of their music, which is definitely different, but it's heavily jazz influenced. And then of course there's Herbie. And that's like, you know, getting in the ring with Mike Tyson.
Right.
You know, say, "Oh, you think you can box?" And that's you know, by the time you put your hands up, you're on the floor.
Right.
And he looks at you and goes, "You want to do it again?" But I love them all dearly, and it's just amazing to be able to, you know, called them buddies.
Sure.
You know,
Yeah, absolutely.
another
Incredible.
crazy thing, yeah.
Incredible. So we obviously have to talk about the Jacksons and Michael Jackson. You spent 30 years with the crew
off and on.
all the incredible recordings and tours. And
yeah.
how did you make that connection?
Right. Well, there's a dear friend of mine, Bobby Colombi, who was an executive at, I think was a producer, executive producer at CBS at the time.
Sure.
And he was talking to me about getting more into arranging. And I said, oh, I don't know. He says, well, actually, you really should get more into arranging. And here's who you're going to be doing it with. The next thing I know, I'm in a room with the Jacksons. It's like, oh, okay, well, hi, how are you? And it was for the Destiny album. And they were very anxious to, establish their own autonomy and identity after the Motown and the Gamble and Huff years. But CBS just, put a little insurance in place, with people like Bobby, just to make sure that, I guess, they didn't run too reckless.
Right.
And Bobby brought me in and introduced us to each other. And we were like, oh, okay, well, I guess we're going to be working together, so hi. And it was just, incredible for me having been in junior high school when I Want You Back hit, and thinking that was like the most amazing thing since the Beatles and the Monkees, who were the American Beatles, and now we got the Jackson 5, who are the Black Beatles. I'm like, okay, this is it. Right? And they had their own cartoon show on Saturdays. I mean, you can't beat that. So next thing I know, I'm in a room with them, and we started working on the Destiny project. And the first rhythm arrangement I did was for Blame It on the Boogie.
Mm-hmm.
So I did the rhythm arrangements for that album, and then later on the Triumph album. But before Triumph, Quincy was working on Michael's first solo project, which was Off the Wall. So he called me in for that. And that began that relationship, and so it was Off the Wall, and then Thriller, and then Bad and Dangerous. But for Bad, well, Thriller came before Bad. When we were working on Bad, Michael asked me in his own unique way to do his tour. I remember we'd be in the studio, and he's like, you really enjoy touring, right? I go, yeah. This time would pass. He goes, you enjoy big audiences, right? I go, yeah, that's great. He says, you enjoy the lives. I go, yes, Michael, I do. And then I finally put it together. Oh, you want me to tour? So, yeah, I was his music director for the Bad and Dangerous tours. And, I mean, what can I tell you that you don't already know? It's the feeling of, standing maybe like 10 feet behind him watching doing Billie Jean, or Man in the Mirror with a stadium full of lit torches.
Right.
And I don't mean iPhones, I mean like real torches.
Right.
You haven't lived until you've seen that view, man. It's pretty stunning. It's pretty stunning.
That's incredible.
And I just, I had another full circle moment with them just recently. Just recently, about a week or so ago, they received the keys to the city of Detroit.
How about that?
My hometown.
Nice.
And I got to go celebrate with them. And I'm there at the ceremony, and I'm in the audience, and Jermaine and Marlon both mentioned me in the audience and had me stand up and said, we have a special friend, in Detroit who came to be with us, and it was just so beautiful. And then I ended up being in a picture with them, backstage with them holding one of the plaques, and it was just like, again, from a junior high school to that moment, I never ever imagined that, such a blessing like that would come. And then this is after the 30th anniversary shows in Madison Square Garden, where I got to stand in a huddle with them, and in another room with Michael, and I got my arms around them, and I'm saying, all right, boys, have a great show. As your music director, before we get, it's like, you can't, it's incredible.
Yeah,
it really
absolutely.
Yeah.
I love the story of Michael getting you the Rhodes.
Oh, Yeah, we were working on, what were we working on? I think it was Off the Wall. And no, no. It was before that. It was Destiny. And you know, they would joke around with me because they asked if I had a Rhodes of my own, and I said no. And they would like make fun of me and stuff. This would go on for a while. And then so the project's over, and then I'm at home minding my own business, and then this white truck pulls up, and a guy comes and says, "Are you Greg Phillinganes?" I go, "Yeah." He says, "Well, I have something for you." He pulls out a Fender Rhodes and a note from Michael that said, oh, I knew you didn't have one of these, so I thought you'd like it.
That's awesome.
It's incredible. He forgot to sign it though, but it was, but the fact that he did that was, you know, he was very thoughtful, very loving. I mean, there were a lot of sides to him, but one side was definitely caring and thoughtful.
Right, that's awesome.
It really was.
Yeah, I love that story.
Fantastic.
I love that story. So you've mentioned musical director quite a few times, and we see that phrase in association with big tours and things.
Yeah.
What does that mean, actually? What does the job of music director entail?
To keep sanity.
Okay.
With everybody involved. A lot of it is psychology. You know, the technical term, the technical description is to be the musical liaison between the artist and the band, you know, and to convey the artist's ideas to the band. So you're kind of like the translator, and you're the facilitator of that, and hopefully the expediter of it too, you know, because when the artist has some kind of idea that they may not be able to articulate in a way that's that musicians are expected, that they expect to hear, then the music director can say, okay, well, we need to do this way and this way, you know.
Right.
And so it just kind of facilitates and expedites those ideas to the artist's satisfaction, and hopefully you walk away with another satisfied customer.
Right.
But in working in TV shows, for instance, you're dealing with more than one ego. You're dealing with several raging egos, and everybody wants to, you know, actually everybody wants to do your job.
Right.
What it really is. And of course, if you do a great job, then you barely get a pat on the back. But if you suck, it's your fault.
Sure.
You know. And so basically in productions like that, the music director is just someone that the production can blame.
Okay.
You know, when stuff goes left.
Right.
And so, well, we shouldn't have never hired that guy. I never liked him anyway. Right. So there's that.
So is it part of the job then to hire the musicians? Do you find them?
Oh, absolutely.
Do you put the charts together and do all of that kind of stuff?
All that stuff, yeah. I hire the band. Again, that's something that everybody else wants to do, but it's like, no, I'm the musician. I'll be hiring the band. Mm-hmm. And you know, I arrange for charts to be copied, and you know, I don't do all this single-handedly. I have an incredible contractor, a lovely woman that I've been working with for the last 20, 25 years. Mm-hmm. And I don't leave the house without her. She's just invaluable and knows everyone, and usually does 4 to 5 other people's jobs simultaneously.
Right.
And she's that great.
That's awesome.
And so I'm going to give a shout out to my Joanne Tominaga. You know who you are. You know I love you. And so that also helps my job go much smoother. And so actually it's Joanne. I would, you know, have a conversation with Joanne on a typical event and say, okay, I want to hire so-and-so and so-and-so in different positions. And then Joanne will make the calls and set everyone up, make sure everyone's set up with the union, make sure all the contracts are, you know, in order and so forth. And work along with me with the producers, if it's a TV show, or with the artists, and just, you know, we just try to make it as painless as possible for everyone involved.
Sure. Sure. So you go in with pretty much an idea of who you want to play in the band. You don't do like cattle call auditions,
No,
those kind of things.
No. As long as I've been doing this, I know who to get.
Yeah, right.
That's not a problem.
So what is it that makes those people the go-to people?
It depends on the job. It depends on the event. And because, players are characters as well. It's like different styles of music. And based on my experience of working with, several different musicians over all these decades, I know who would be best for, any given event. And nothing's more gratifying than, getting the right band personnel, putting a killer band together, with a killer artist for a killer event, with killer songs, and it all works.
Right.
That's the most gratifying thing.
Oh, it has to be.
Yeah.
It has to be, yeah.
So,
speaking of, one of the projects that stands out aside the ones we've talked about is Eric Clapton, Phil Collins, Nathan East, and yourself touring and doing the shows. What an incredible ensemble.
it did not suck. I must say. I must tell you, it did not suck.
Yeah, that had to be fun. Tell us a little bit about that.
Man, look, first of all, it was an extension of the August album that Eric had Phil produce, and I was brought in. And Phil wasn't really familiar with me, and first of all, he's not really crazy about keyboard players anyway, because he thinks they overplay.
Okay.
So, I had to go in and, calm his fears about that.
Right.
And it just turned into a love fest, and when the project was finally over, Eric's manager, Roger Forrester, realized we didn't want to leave. So he set up a little tour, a little regional thing in Europe that started in southern France. We did a few things. And we also did the Montreux Festival, Montreux, Switzerland, and we had a blast. And then that extended into a mini American tour.
Mm-hmm.
And, we went into Madison Square Garden and the Forum and slayed. We panicked them. The first 20 rows, man, were like this. And no, we killed, man. It was very strong.
Yeah.
And then Phil had to leave because of his obligations with that other little band.
Mm-hmm.
And so then Steve Ferrone was brought in.
Right.
We did the same kind of thing. And then we came to another impasse because I was asked to do Michael's Bad tour, so I had to go back and tell Eric, it's Michael Jackson, bro. I mean, what can I tell you? So, that was a bit of a, but no, with the Phil band, it was nonstop laughs, nonstop. We had so much fun, and we were just so tightly, and it was just like four brothers, and
That's awesome.
The laughs, that's all I remember, really.
Right.
And it's just silly stuff. One of Phil's favorite jokes is, what do they call the guy that hangs out with the band? The drummer.
Right.
We love it, break him up all the time.
Right.
And we had, at the end of each show, we would stand in line when we were taking our bows and do this. See if I can still do it.
We do this. Right.
I don't know why. We just did it, And then we had T-shirts made up, Clapton, Collins, Phillinganes, East, and with that as the logo.
Right.
So, it was just so much fun.
Oh, it had to be.
Yeah.
It had to be incredible.
And Phil also introduced me to the joys of steam bath. Yeah, take steams. We would go into hotels and just sit in the steam.
Right.
And chill out. So,
Nice.
yeah.
Nice. That's awesome. So I have to ask, I've read that you pretty much just use factory presets in the keyboards, that you don't do a lot of time designing sounds.
Dude, this is 2018. If it don't sound good out the box, I don't want to know about it.
Right.
you know.
Right.
All that extra programming and all that was cute in the 80s, the early 80s.
Right.
But no, this is, the technology is way too advanced, and a lot of the work has already been put in, you know, between R&D and the input of musos and geeks who have nothing else to do with their time but figure out waveforms, and I don't have that kind of time.
Right.
So after I plug it in and turn it on, it doesn't sound good. Next.
Mm-hmm.
The funniest thing, though, is that I can't tell you how many times that I've been in like a studio or some situation where I'm using a factory preset in a particular situation. I get asked, man, where did that sound come from? I go, well, that's patch 38. It's right here. Really? I go, yeah, it's right here. But, and then I go, well, it doesn't sound like that when I play it. I go, well, that's, I don't know what to tell you about that. But yeah, I mean, it's these, this new crop of instruments, you know, it's all there really.
Mm-hmm.
And all you have to do, because that's how I spend most of my time. And if I'm doing a session, you know, like 80% of the time is used up just going through every sound, finding the right one for the right situation. So,
Right.
you know, when you go through it, it's the payoff is finding the perfect match for whatever the song calls for, and then it's worth it. You know,
Sure.
It's worth taking the time. So.
Sure, absolutely. Which brings us to Korg, and they're the ones that are sponsoring you being here, correct?
Yes, thank you, Korg.
Yeah, absolutely. How long have you been associated with them?
Oh my goodness, since at least the Bad Tour.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I remember doing posters along with Rory Kaplan, who was the other keyboard player. And we were trying to look like rock stars. But yeah, so it's been a very long and wonderful relationship with Korg, and I've gotten a lot of mileage out of their products, and they just are very solid, and you know, they have a high standard. They just continue to make great products.
Absolutely. Well, we're very grateful to them for bringing you in here, and in fact, you're heading on stage, aren't you, to do a workshop or a clinic or something coming up here pretty soon.
I am, yeah. I think so.
What you going to be talking about?
I have no idea.
Oh, good.
It's better when I just get asked questions, and
Yeah.
I can, because I don't know. I'm still waking up, so
Right.
we'll see. We'll hope for the best.
Well, we've got thousands of our best friends here.
Yeah.
Going to be
Okay.
checking it out, so I'm sure you'll get some questions and have some fun.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll hope for the best.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah. Me
It's
too.
great to see you. Thanks so much for
Thank
coming
you,
in.
Mitch.
Appreciate you
Appreciate it.
taking the time. I'm glad to have you here, and we're looking forward to the workshop.
Thanks, man.
All right, come back soon.
I will. Yeah. This is nice.
And thank you for joining me at GearFest 2018. I'm Mitch Gallagher.